Alright, what's happening? Y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores with another late upload. I don't know when this video will actually come out, but as of right now, it's 3:12 a.m. as I'm starting this recording. Sorry, I've been busy, but I got to do a video within every 24 hours at minimum. Trying to get back to the point of doing two, so just stay tuned. But here today, we're talking about all of this 2024 NFL draft chaos and all of these rumors going around right now. It's being reported that 4 to 5 teams are trying to trade up for a quarterback potentially. The Bears apparently want a historical haul. That's an exact quote, historical haul for the #1 overall pick and much more. And of course, we got to talk about how the Commanders are potentially affected by all of these different reports and rumors surrounding this upcoming 2024 NFL draft and the quarterbacks in this draft specifically. Also, Benjamin Albright, who is known around the NFL, and I'm not saying he's always right, but he hears things from a lot of people from behind the scenes. And he gave his prediction for how the top 5 draft picks will go, trades included. So based on what Benjamin Albright is hearing around the NFL, what would the Commanders do with their 2nd overall pick? Trade back, trade up for Caleb Williams, or just stay put and draft Drake May, Jayden Daniels, or another quarterback? Stay tuned for that, because we'll discuss that Benjamin Albright part at the end of the video. The majority of this video is going to be surrounding all of the rumors going around. I'm going to give my opinions on everything. We're going to do a full breakdown of everything that we're hearing about the quarterback situation in this upcoming draft. What teams want them, what teams may not want them, who's willing to trade up, who's willing to trade back. It's a lot going on right now. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I'm so excited to bring a lot of the content and ideas that I have for y'all. Just stay tuned. Again, I'm working on a trade back mock draft. I'm still also working on the Cliff Kingsbury theme mock draft, where we get a lot of players that perfectly fit his air raid system that he wants to run here. Working on a lot of film sessions for a lot of the draft picks for this upcoming draft. A lot of these players that we're going to talk about in this video, I'm working on film sessions for those guys. That will be exclusive for channel members, so stay tuned for all of that. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go ahead and talk about this video. Let's get it. All right, so based on what Daniel Jeremiah is hearing around the NFL, and I want to preface with this with the fact that he said it himself. Who knows if it's actually true or not? I mean, of course, I can't 100% prove this, but Daniel Jeremiah says that he bases a lot of his mock drafts, if not most of them, on what he's hearing around the NFL and what he thinks is going to happen, more so than what he feels teams should do with those draft picks. So like how most of us, including me, when we do mock drafts, we're doing it based on this would be the best idea for this team at this pick and things like that. Daniel Jeremiah does his mock drafts based on what he's hearing around the NFL and what seems most likely to happen based on that information. So that very same Daniel Jeremiah said that he thinks 4 to 5 teams could explore trading up for a quarterback in the 2024 NFL draft. And that is just pure chaos right there. Like, what? I mean, I'm pretty sure that a lot of teams that need quarterbacks would love a chance to get a Jayden Daniels or a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, but the thought of them potentially competing against each other to trade up when the top 3 teams that are already there also look to be ready to get quarterbacks themselves, it would be different if the Commanders didn't need a quarterback. I mean, again, based on how you feel about Sam Howell, it would be different if the Patriots didn't need a quarterback and things like that. But since it looks like all 3 teams need a quarterback, that's just chaos right there. 4 to 5 teams thinking about somehow convincing a team that needs a quarterback to trade back and not take a quarterback in this, what a lot of people feels like is a very quarterback rich draft, especially this top 3. That's very interesting. A lot of people feel like having a #2 overall pick right now that the Commanders have is more valuable this draft than it is most other drafts when there aren't such a great crop of quarterbacks, especially a top 3 quarterback class like this one. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's dive into the rest of the article. It says it appears we could see quite a bit of movement in the 2024 NFL draft order due to the quarterback talent available this spring. NFL Network draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah said Saturday that he believes between 4 and 5 teams could look to move up in this spring's draft to select a quarterback. He added that teams aren't excited about next year's QB's class. Now, when he says 4 to 5 teams could look to move up, that doesn't mean that 4 to 5 teams will move up. But that's just really interesting that there's, based on what he's hearing around the NFL, that 4 to 5 teams are potentially interested in, at the very least, exploring the option, which could potentially lure the Commanders into trading back. Because if there's a team that's likely to trade back, wouldn't be surprised it's us, because we're going to dive into that at some point later in this video. I already have it in my notes, but I break down why with who Josh Harris is as an owner, Adam Peters is as a GM, Eugene Shin as a top analytics guy, where we are actually pretty likely, probably more likely than a lot of people think, to trade back in this draft. But most importantly, what we're going to focus on immediately is that he said teams aren't excited about next year's QB class. And wait a minute, first of all, my dog Carson Beck coming out next year. Don't sleep on Shedeur Sanders either, but my boy Carson Beck is coming out next year. Put some respect on my boy Carson Beck. But I can't be mad at it. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jayden Daniels. I understand. To continue reading the article, Jeremiah's report comes after one NFL scout told ESPN's Jeremy Fowler and Pete Thamel that he believes there's a significant drop-off in quarterback talent going from this 2024 NFL draft to the 2025 one. Quote, "It won't be anything close to this year," unquote, the scout said. And that's wild. I mean, I could see how you could feel that the 2024 class could be better than the 2025 class. Big question marks for the 2025 class and things like that. But to say that it won't be anything close, like to just already assume as of February 2024 that the draft that will take place in April 2025 won't have as much quarterback talent is a little irresponsible. I'm not gonna lie, but I can see it a little bit. You should do your homework. You should look ahead and things like that. But there's so much that could happen in between now and then. We'll see. Either way, continuing with the article, there's no shortage of arms available this year with the likes of UNC's Drake May and USC's Caleb Williams leading the pack. Williams is widely expected to go first overall to the Chicago Bears, but May is not far behind in terms of talent. Bleacher Report's NFL scouting department actually has May ranked as the #1 quarterback available in this 2024 class, which is ahead of Caleb Williams. Really interesting. Other quarterbacks available include Washington's Michael Penix Jr., LSU's Jayden Daniels, Michigan's J.J. McCarthy, Oregon's Bo Nix, South Carolina's Spencer Rattler, and Notre Dame's Sam Hartman. And what I take away from that, several things. First of all, again, like I've said, and this has happened in my mock draft simulators, and I've already broken down the logic as to why this could happen, especially with Drake May, the build that he is, the prototypical quarterback, the size and everything, copycat league. I don't think he's Josh Allen. I don't necessarily think he's going to be like a Justin Herbert, but with him having similar traits and size and the similar build and things like that, somebody may be willing to go ahead and take him, like in the Bears case, #1 overall over a Caleb Williams, who comes in. As much as I love Caleb Williams and he's my favorite quarterback, I can see how a team could convince themselves that Drake May is the better prospect with him having a prototypical build and then Caleb Williams having a fumbling problem. And that may just be enough for the Bears to be like, yeah, I prefer that. If Shane Waldron prefers Drake May, it's quite likely that they go with a Drake May. And we're just going to already assume that the Bears are taking quarterback. Justin Fields is getting traded for what looks to be like a second-round pick. That's another rumor that's going around. Apparently, Justin Fields is worth a second-round pick for whoever trades for him. My most likely destination would probably be the Falcons. First of all, that's where he's from. That's why I've been rooting for him since he's come out of high school. But at the same time, the Falcons need a quarterback. Desmond Ridder is not it. We've seen as Commanders fans that Taylor Heineke is not it. So they may be willing to do that, especially for a second-round pick. And with them having, like the 7th pick in the draft, you can still draft an elite player and then get a quarterback with your second-round pick. I mean, you got to pay them big money, but the Falcons have done dumber things in the past. And I don't even think trading for Justin Fields is necessarily even that dumb. But again, Drake May, just to emphasize this, a lot of people are saying that he may, I mean, there's some smoke growing there, there's some steam that Drake May could actually go #1 to the Bears. You never know. Again, Bleacher Report's NFL scouting department did like a big board, and they have like a grading scale: 10 generational talent, #1 overall. Then they have like a 9.5 to 9.9. If you get that number, if you're in that range, you're a top 5 prospect. And then it goes on and on. Top 10 prospect, then it's immediate impact prospect, first round, then it's year 1 starter, late first, second round. It just keeps going on and on and on. And at the very top, they have Marvin Harrison Jr. #1. They have my dog Brock Bowers #2. I ain't mad at that. Drake May #3, and then Caleb Williams #4, ahead of Joe Alt #5, Olu Fashanu #6, then Malik Neighbors #7, Jared Verse 8, Rome Odunze 9, and then Terrion Arnold, the cornerback from Alabama, 10. And it just goes on and on and on from there. But that's just really interesting, man. Some people may, by the end of this whole process, the Bears may convince themselves that Drake May is the better quarterback. Also, another thing I want to point out is that they don't feel like Jayden Daniels is on the same level, apparently coming from Bleacher Report or whoever else is behind this, NFL Network, some scouts around the NFL. Apparently, Jayden Daniels is in that quarterback class, that tier of Michael Penix Jr., Michigan's J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, all of those guys. He's closer to them than apparently he is to Caleb Williams or Drake May. They feel like it's like Drake May, Caleb Williams in one tier, and then there's the next tier with Jayden Daniels and all those other guys. That's what we're seeing so far, but of course there's a lot of film to watch. We have Combine, we have Pro Days, things could change, but that's apparently how people are feeling right now, which is really interesting to me because I love Jayden Daniels. He's my #2, but let's talk about it. Daniels is widely considered the best available among that group and expected to be a first-round pick. McCarthy and Bo Nix could also end up being selected in the first round. So they do acknowledge that even though he is closer to what they feel like a McCarthy and Bo Nix is than a Caleb Williams or Drake May, they do admit that Jayden Daniels is the best out of that next tier. Interesting. The Bears, the Washington Commanders, and New England Patriots own the top 3 picks in this year's draft, and considering each franchise could use a quarterback, 3 signal callers could be taken to open up the first round of the 2024 NFL draft. And I mean, when you think about it, you typically suck and lose a lot of games because you don't have a good quarterback or your quarterback was hurt. But either way, there's no coincidence that 3 arguably QB needy teams have the top 3 picks as a quarterback league, y'all. But at the same time, in my own personal opinion, I feel like Justin Fields could really succeed wherever he ends up going. But that rookie contract ending soon is why Caleb Williams is the obvious choice for that #1 overall pick for them, in my personal opinion. But then again, like we just talked about, some people may feel like Drake May end up being that pick. And then when it comes to our case, the Washington Commanders, because we got to focus on the Commanders, even though these are general NFL rumors, we're here for the Commanders most importantly. I believe Sam Howell actually could, even at some point in his career, end up being a pretty good quarterback. But with new owner, new GM, new head coach, and offensive coordinator, new quarterback just basically seems destined at this point. Whether you think they should or not, it just feels like it's going to happen. It feels pretty obvious. That's why even in my Doug Williams video, I talked about like it really honestly does not matter. You know me, I'm trying to give y'all the points of everything, like why we should be mad at him, why what he said was crazy, why what he said was pointless, and things like that. But at the end of the day, man, what Doug Williams said about us 9 out of 10 taking the quarterback, nobody's surprised by that information. My whole point is, why are you even saying that? Like, how does that help anybody? But at the end of the day, man, we're taking quarterback, dog. Don't even try to convince yourself that we may not be doing that. Who knows? Things could change from now to when the draft happens late April. But I'm thoroughly convinced we're taking quarterback, period. And then we already just talked about the Bears. We just talked about the Commanders. Now, Patriots-wise, Mac Jones sucks. That's it. That's all there is to that one. Now, continuing with the article after that, the 2025 draft class is expected to include Colorado Shedeur Sanders, Texans Quinn Ewers, Georgia's Carson Beck. You know what I'm saying? I got to put a little extra spice on my boy. And then Penn State's Drew Allar. I hope that's how you pronounce his last name. Sanders and Ewers possess plenty of upside, but they don't necessarily wield the prototypical traits found in this year's top prospects, especially a guy like a Drake May, again, with that prototypical build and things like that. First of all, don't disrespect Carson Beck like that. Let's just go ahead and get that out the way. He's gonna be one of the top quarterbacks, taking one of the top 3. Don't act like it's Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, and then next tier Carson Beck is in the next. No, he's in that first tier. Let's stop that right now. He'll prove y'all wrong though. But my main point is, Yeah, this time last year, Drake May and Caleb Williams were far more hyped up than Shadir Sanders and Ewers are at this point this year. But I counter that point by pointing out the fact that most people didn't see Jayden Daniels being this fire back in February of 2023, this time last year. And same thing with even Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix. And as a UGA fan, if anybody knows, I know how much Bo Nix improved this past season, man. Going from the 2022 season and anything before that to the 2023 season, he made a huge leap. Still wouldn't take him in the first round personally, but he still took a huge step forward in 2023. So basing current 2024 NFL draft decisions on what's going to happen potentially in the 2025 draft is a little crazy. And even on the opposite side of that, just to further my point, just 2 years ago, a lot of people were talking about Spencer Rattler was going to be super fire. And even I was questioning at the time. I know a lot of people were questioning me questioning it. I was like, I don't really see what y'all see in Spencer Rattler. But at the same time, a big general synopsis was that Spencer Rattler was going to be that next guy, like the next Pat Mahomes or something like that. And then going into the 2023 season, people seemed higher on JJ McCarthy back then, couple of years ago, than they do now after he just won the national championship. So things change. Players get worse, players get better, make huge leaps forward. Again, Jayden Daniels is the guy that got better. Spencer Rattler is the guy that got worse. You just never know what's going to happen throughout the course of a season, man. So it's just crazy that, yeah, of course, you know, I do want to admit that scouting ahead of time is smart. It's important. It's imperative. You have to do those things. But I think it's unwise to solely base your decisions in this upcoming draft on what you think the 2025 draft quarterback crop appears to be as of February 2024, man. I just don't get it. No combine, no pro days. We haven't even seen these guys go out there and stuff like that. I don't know, man. I just feel like that's irresponsible. I feel like we shouldn't be going that far with it. Yeah, scout ahead, but I feel like that's a little too much. That's aggressive. But going back to the point that 4 or 5 teams are reportedly trying to trade up for quarterback in the draft, well, I'm afraid to break it to those 4 to 5 teams, but trades work both ways, dog. And no matter how bad those 4 to 5 teams want Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jayden Daniels, no matter what they offer, if the Bears, Commanders, and Patriots value taking quarterbacks more than whatever those teams are willing to offer, and even more than that, then there's nothing they can do. There's absolutely nothing they can do. It's a quarterback league, and if all 3 teams just so happen to feel like quarterback is worth more than whatever draft capital those other teams are willing to offer, it doesn't matter. So that's nice and all that you're willing to offer these crazy draft picks, this immense draft capital. But if we don't want to trade back, we just simply don't want to trade back. But that's when things get really interesting, because if you are the type of person that wants to trade back and give Sam Howell one more try, and you prefer to build the team and then add the quarterback in the 2025 draft rather than the other way around, then you are very happy to hear that there's a market out there. The fact that there are 4 to 5 teams that potentially want to trade up to where we are, that sounds like there's a market. And then the fact that there's 4 to 5 of them sounds like they can start to outbid themselves, and then the value can just get higher and higher and higher. We can hold that pick for ransom, and then if we do end up trading back, we could trade back for an immense haul, something historical like what the Bears are talking about. We're going to talk about that later in the video. But then the next issue is, who are these teams? And when you're looking at the draft order right now, the team with the highest draft pick out of all of my personal suspects that need a quarterback is probably the Falcons, and they have the 8th overall pick. Are we able to trade back that far down and still get an elite player in a draft that's, you know, it's pretty deep at certain positions, but it's very top heavy when it comes to like pure elite talent? Like, are missing out on Olu Fashanu, Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Brock Bowers worth trading back to just miss out on all of those guys? Would a trade back that far even be worth it? Maybe, maybe not. It's just a very interesting debate topic. And the thing for those of y'all that prefer to trade back to really just think about, I know a lot of people that want to trade back probably don't even care if we miss out on elite talent, especially at tackle. If that's gone, y'all probably prefer to just have as much draft capital as possible. And I'm not mad at that. That's not my thing. That's not what I prefer, but I'm not mad at that. Honestly, I can see arguments for either side. But again, for me, take quarterback, me personally. But shouts out to my boys over there at Commanders Realm. My boy Eric Sully, shouts out to him. I completely agree. If there already weren't enough reasons as to why you take one this year, trading back is great, but when you have the second pick and no quarterback in a QB rich draft, in a QB necessary league, you take a quarterback. I completely agree, man. I'm completely on the side of that. But again, I can see why a lot of people would prefer to trade back. I see the points. And at the same time, only take a quarterback because you love that quarterback. I want to emphasize that over and over again. I feel like I'm preaching. You only take a quarterback if you love that quarterback, not just simply because taking a quarterback is the right thing to do with the number 2 overall pick. And most people feel like you need a quarterback. If for any reason you feel like Sam Howell is that guy, or for some crazy reason that this coaching staff and front office does not like any of the quarterbacks in this draft other than Caleb Williams, and then the Bears take him, then don't take a quarterback. Don't force it. In my personal opinion, even though I prefer Drake May and Jayden Daniels, I like those guys a lot. I'd be willing to take them. I'd be happy with either one. But at the end of the day, if for some reason Cliff Kingsbury, Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, Eugene Shin, all of these guys come together and the only quarterback they happen to like is Caleb Williams for some crazy reason, and he's gone to the Bears, don't just take Jayden Daniels or Drake May as a consolation prize. Only take those guys if you truly love them, because otherwise you're just going to set our franchise back just a few more years further than we've already been set back by Dan Snyder and the decisions that Ron Rivera, Martin Mayhew, and all of those guys have made. Only take the quarterback if you love the quarterback. If you're willing to do everything in your power and everything that it takes, you're willing to stay up late nights more times than not to develop the right system around this guy, the right offense, to do whatever it takes to build the right team around him, to get the right offensive lineman, the right weapons that fit what he does perfectly, to get the play calls together, to just do everything in your power to help that guy succeed. If you don't love any of these quarterbacks to do that, even though most of us feel like Drake May and or Jayden Daniels are great enough to take the number 2 overall pick, if y'all don't do it, man. Don't do what y'all feel like everybody else thinks you should do. Do what you feel like you should do, and I trust the staff to make the right decision. I feel like the right decision is Jayden Daniels or Drake May. Me personally, I prefer Jayden Daniels, but if they just for some reason, some crazy reason, don't like either of those guys, as much as I want to take a quarterback, don't take them if you don't love them. If you feel like it's Caleb Williams a bust, then don't just go and get a bust. You might as well trade back at that point. Now moving on, apparently there's a report coming from Ian Rappaport that the Bears would need a historic compensation to trade the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft. There's a quote coming from it that says Chicago would need a historic haul of draft picks and overall compensation to move off the first pick of the 2024 NFL draft. Sources say, in the words of one source, it would have to be crazy, the type of haul that you have to give up. Something just unforeseen, something, I mean, to put the word historical is wild. Like, it would have to basically be something we either have never seen or at the very least have not seen in a long time as far as trade compensation goes. And that doesn't sound fun. I love Caleb Williams, but that doesn't sound worth it. I'm not going to lie. We better not even take that seriously. If that's really the type of time that the Bears are on, please don't even acknowledge that, Commanders. Don't even pick up the phone if the Bears call. So to me, it's basically Drake May or Jayden Daniels at this point. Again, I prefer Jayden Daniels, but hey, man, this also only confirms my suspicion that we are far more likely to trade down, trade back than to trade up. First of all, with Josh Harris trying to push the Commanders into this new analytical age to be like one of the front runners, one of the trailblazers when it comes to the analytic sides and believe in all of the stats and things like that, basing your decisions on what the stats say. And then with the hiring of Eugene Shin, who's the head of everything analytics for the Commanders, everything that we got going on analytics, he's the head of that, the guy leading all of it. And he's that same guy that literally said, quote, 2 later picks are better than 1 earlier pick. And then on top of that, Adam Peters is arguably the best late round talent evaluator in NFL mind in the NFL. So I was already thinking that we were more likely to trade back just because of that. But to trade up potentially, and with the Bears talking about a historical haul, yeah, that's over with. Again, we have all of these analytical guys that the math is going to say to trade back. Eugene Shin has already said it himself. He prefers to trade back. And then you have Adam Peters that if you do trade back is the best in the business, arguably out of the entire NFL, at finding talent with those later picks that you traded back for. I mean, and then you add to the fact that the Bears are holding that pick basically for ransom and you got to basically sell your soul to get that pick, yeah, we're far more likely to trade back than we are to trade up. Point blank, period. I'm afraid to break the news for those of y'all that really want Caleb Williams no matter what. Go ahead and detach yourself emotionally from that situation. If we get Caleb Williams, it's because the Bears decided to get Drake May or something first overall, and Caleb Williams is just sitting there number 2 overall. Yeah, I would love to get Caleb Williams, yeah. And I'm pretty sure he would love it if we somehow drafted him. He wants to go to the Commanders. He's shown like he loves the fact that Dan Snyder was forced to sell the team. He was excited about Dan Quinn getting hired, all of that. This would be like a perfect marriage, but at the same time, I'm not giving up buku value to do it, dog. Like, I'm 3 good on that, me personally. I'm super good on giving up a historical haul to move up 1 spot. See, I love Caleb Williams, but dog, that's too much. And also, shouts out to Mark Bullock for pointing this out. If the Bears are putting this information out there like this, to me, it says that they're open to dealing and just simply want better offers. So maybe they don't actually literally want a historical haul, but they're just trying to encourage teams and basically put out there what y'all have offered so far is not good enough. What y'all are saying, what y'all have put on the table right now, y'all are nowhere near it. We're going to need more. But it is interesting. Mark Bullock is basically saying that even the fact that this is even out there, the fact that that information, like they told Ian Rappaport to tell everybody else, that shows that they actually are potentially interested in trading back. So maybe they're lying about the historical haul and they just wanted out there that, hey man, we're listening. Because if they truly believe that Caleb Williams is the guy, they wouldn't even bother with all of these trade back talks. I mean, we've had several teams that have potentially needed a quarterback and a great potential #1 overall quarterback, and we're not in February talking about that team potentially trading back. We already know as of December that that team is taking that quarterback, and there's no questions about it. Maybe somebody will come out and report something random to get news and clicks and to generate some type of buzz, but generally we know by now that a #1 overall team is taking a quarterback at a certain point. Usually a lot of years, not all years, maybe not even most years, but a lot of years, we already know that's final. We start saying like the draft starts at the #2 overall pick because we already know what the #1 overall pick is going to do. But for the Bears to not already just shut those rumors down, to still be putting out random information like this, sounds like they're at least considering it, and that's news in itself, to be completely honest. So shouts out to Mark Bullock for pointing that out. The fact that the Bears are even listening is actually very intriguing, because I thought, in my opinion, the Bears should just go ahead and get Caleb Williams, just knock it out. I like Justin Fields, my fault, and that's my boy. I've been rooting for him since high school. He did a lot of great things for the state of Georgia, the metro Atlanta area as a high school student and things like that. But it's just, take Caleb Williams, though. I feel like it's so obvious that the fact that the Bears are even considering trading back, the fact that they're even listening to offers, sounds like, hey, man, they may be more likely to trade back than a lot of people think, and they may not be asking for that historical haul that's being put out there. Also, be on the lookout for a lot of very interesting QB news to start around and especially soon after the Combine, because the article also references last year Chicago and Carolina agreed to their blockbuster trade on March 10th following the Combine. While this year could follow a similar timeline if Fields is traded, it's currently quiet right now. The chatter is expected to pick up around the Combine, and once that hits, trades can be made at any time to be made official at the start of the league year on March 13th. So around that time, like March 10th, March 13th, a little bit after that, you know what I'm saying, that's when this quarterback market draft-wise is really gonna pick up. Of course, a lot of us are gonna be more so focused on free agency and trying to get veterans from other NFL teams, but also don't forget the fact, don't be blind to the fact that a lot of quarterback news could be coming from there. Maybe even some draft trades coming out of it as well. So I'm super excited about that. Also, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler and Don Graziano, I think they do it like every week. They do like an article breaking down everything that they're hearing around the NFL. And this one is titled Super Bowl Buzz and Latest on NFL Free Agency, Draft, and Coaches. And when you go to the Commanders part, Graziano says, I've been cautioned by multiple people not to jump to conclusions about the Commanders hire a former USC quarterbacks coach Cliff Kingsbury as it pertains to the Commanders' interest in USC quarterback Caleb Williams. Yes, there are those in the Commanders organization who are fascinated with the idea of drafting DC native Caleb Williams, even if that means trading up from number 2 to number 1 to get him. But they also recognize that if the Bears are set on taking Caleb Williams number 1 overall, there might be nothing they can do about that. And so first of all, I want to point out the fact that that's interesting that he's saying that, yeah, clearly there are some people in the Commanders organization that not only like Caleb Williams, but are probably willing to trade up to number 1 overall. But it again goes back to my point that I brought up earlier in the video when talking to the 4 to 5 teams that are potentially interested in trading up. Now I'm talking to the Commanders. It doesn't matter, Commanders, how much you want to trade up and get Caleb Williams. If the Bears are just stuck on getting them, it doesn't matter what you offer. Even you could offer something probably historical and they may still say no. Trades go both ways. It takes 2 to tango. But that's really interesting though, that Jeremy Fowler is saying that there are some people in the Commanders organization, even though we just recently hired guys. I mean, to get this information that quickly is interesting. The fact that we're willing to trade up for Caleb Williams, at least some people in the building are, very interesting. He also continues to say the sources I've talked to pointed out that North Carolina's Drake May played in Phil Longo's offensive system in 2022, which is a version of the air raid that Cliff Kingsbury knows how to coach. They also point out that LSU's Jayden Daniels is a mobile quarterback and a talented downfield thrower, arguably the best deep ball thrower in this entire draft. Already brought up the stats and everything to prove it. Who could mesh well with Kingsbury, who has coached Kyler Murray and Pat Mahomes. I would expect the Commanders to look into what it would take to draft Williams, but I caution against thinking they hired Kingsbury based on any belief or certainty that they were going to get him. That's a lot of interesting information. The main thing I take from that, the thing that I want to emphasize, is that Drake May is a better fit for Cliff Kingsbury because he's already played in the air raid system. Jayden Daniels is not. But then when it comes to Cliff Kingsbury having already coached Kyler Murray and Pat Mahomes, Jayden Daniels is the closest thing to that between him and Drake May. So those are the separate reasons why either of those guys could potentially be great fits for the Commanders and why I'd be happy with either one. I prefer Jayden Daniels, but I like Drake May too, man. I'm not going to lie. And then, lastly, Benjamin Albright, again, based on what he's hearing around the NFL, this is not just some random, I just felt like putting out a tweet today. This is just based on what he's hearing so far, but opinions change. Again, a lot of us just hired new staff members, new coaching staff. The Bears just hired an offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron. The Patriots just started completely over, going from Bill Belichick to Jared Mayo. You've already seen the Commanders have started all the way over from the ground up, from the top to the bottom, completely over. The Cardinals have a little bit of changes. The Chargers changed everything as well. And this is all very recent. So what Benjamin Albright is hearing, not only may it not potentially be accurate, but even if it is 100% accurate today, things could change from February 11th to April 27th when the draft is starting, late April. So of course, take this all with a grain of salt. But Benjamin Albright is basing this on what he's hearing around the NFL. He has number 1, the Bears taking quarterback Caleb Williams. He has number 2, the Washington Commanders taking quarterback Drake May. Then he has the Patriots trading down to get a Dunze. He didn't say who would end up trading up to that number 3 overall pick and who they would take, but he has the Patriots trading down to get Rome Odunze, the wide receiver. Then he has the Cardinals taking Marvin Harrison Jr., number 4 overall. So I'm assuming if Marvin Harrison Jr. is available number 4 overall, I'm guessing that he's predicting whoever traded up to number 3 probably took Jayden Daniels. And then he has the Chargers trading out of the top 5 pick, the 5th pick overall, back to potentially get offensive tackle Georgia Amarius Mims. And I think that's a home run pick right there. If you could trade back and get Amarius Mims, that's an A+ draft to me. Telling y'all, highest ceiling out of any tackle in this draft. Highest ceiling out of any tackle I've seen in the draft in a few years. I'm that high on him. That's not even just me being biased. Just go look at the Ohio State tape and tell me you've seen better offensive tackle tape than that. Yeah, he's been inconsistent. Yeah, he's been hurt a lot. But boy, the ceiling, I'm just talking ceiling. If I'm the Commanders, I'm drafting Olu Fashanu and Joe O over Amarius Mims. But when we're talking ceiling, there's no way you can argue against that. And again, what is very interesting, he didn't necessarily say this in his own words, but it sounds like maybe no Jayden Daniels in the top 5. Again, based on what NFL scouts are saying around the NFL, from Daniel Jeremiah and Bleacher Report, NFL Network, all of those guys reporting that Jayden Daniels is not potentially in the same tier as Drake May and Caleb Williams. He's more so in the tier with those other guys like we talked about earlier. So maybe Jayden Daniels does make it out of the top 5. That would be very interesting. Heisman winner for a reason, best deep ball out of the entire draft, the most mobile guy out of all of the top guys in the entire draft as well. For him to slide out of the top 5, potentially very Interesting. And then also, just to add context here, completely unrelated to the Commanders or the Cowboys, somebody said the Chargers should draft Brock Bowers, and I agree. Stay at 5 and take my guy so he can make as much money as possible. But Benjamin Albright said 90% it will be offensive linemen there, which is really, so basically, if the Chargers don't trade back to take an Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt, basically, and I'm not surprised by that either. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about all of this in this video, man, because this was a lot of information. Some of it's rumors, some of it's reported, some of it's facts, some of it's opinions, some of it just may be straight up fake news. Maybe it's just distractions, maybe it's misinformation being put out there for us to develop opinions and then base things on those opinions, and then come draft time we're just caught completely off guard and things like that. Who knows? Let me know how you feel about everything. Of course, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the points made in this video by me or the reporters. Let me know all of that. Of course, again, even if you disagree, I want to hear it. I want to see why and all of that type of stuff, because I could be wrong and you can make me a smarter football fan and football analyst, so I appreciate it, positive or negative. So make sure y'all stay tuned for all of the content. I'm trying my best to try to read and reply to as many comments as possible. Super busy again, that's why I'm recording this so late. Just make sure y'all stay tuned. I'm not gonna miss a day. Within 24 hours, y'all always gonna get another video, but I'm about to get back to doing like 2 to 3 a day, so stay tuned. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.